The Galactic Council Chamber was the heart of interstellar diplomacy, a sprawling dome of crystalline architecture suspended in orbit around the galaxy's central star. It had stood for millennia, a beacon of peace and cooperation among hundreds of species. Yet today, its polished halls were filled with unease, an undercurrent of fear rippling through the vast assembly. The quarantine zone, an unassuming term for one of the Council's most controversial decisions, had been breached. Humans, the species deemed too dangerous for galactic integration, had somehow escaped. Thousands of years ago, the Council had discovered Sol 3, the third planet in a modest solar system near the galaxy's fringe. The species inhabiting it, humans, had caught their attention for all the wrong reasons. While most civilizations ascended to peaceful coexistence as they advanced, humans charted a path of conflict and destruction. They weaponized their ingenuity, creating tools of war and systems of domination. Worse, they unleashed apocalyptic forces like nuclear fission on themselves before achieving even basic space travel. To the Council, humanity was a paradox. Creative yet destructive, compassionate yet cruel. Their unpredictable nature was a threat. And so, the quarantine zone was established. The Council erected a powerful energy barrier around the solar system, invisible to the humans, but impenetrable to their primitive spacecraft. The decision was cloaked in diplomatic language, claiming it was for the protection of humanity, allowing them to evolve in peace. The reality was far less benevolent. Humanity was considered a potential existential threat, and the Council wasn't willing to take chances. For centuries, the quarantine zone held. Humans advanced at their typical chaotic pace, exploring the edges of their solar system but failing to breach its confines. Council observers stationed in hidden outposts monitored Earth from afar, noting their wars, their fleeting moments of unity, and their relentless technological progress. Still, the Council felt secure. Humanity was confined, and the barrier was deemed unbreakable. Until now, the news had come unexpectedly, arriving as a frantic transmission from a monitoring station near Sol 3. A single human vessel had not only detected the barrier, but somehow disabled it. It had then vanished into hyperspace, a feat humanity wasn't supposed to achieve for another several centuries, according to Council estimates. Counselor of Carr, a member of the Zarin Collective, slammed an appendage down onto the circular table at the center of the chamber. His spiked exoskeleton glinted under the chamber's artificial light. "This is an outrage," he hissed, his voice reverberating through the room. "We assured ourselves that the barrier was impenetrable. How could this have happened?" A holographic display lit up in the center of the room, showing the last known trajectory of the human vessel. The craft was small, primitive by galactic standards, but it had somehow achieved hyperspace travel. "It's not possible," muttered Lyrana, a representative of the Aquilid Union. Her amphibious features shimmered with an iridescent glow. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They couldn't have developed hyperspace engines without outside interference." Counselor Thralic, a crystalline being whose form refracted light into dazzling patterns, spoke in a voice like chiming glass. "Interference is unlikely. The humans have been isolated for millennia. This must be their own doing." Carr sneered. "Then we have gravely underestimated them. If they can dismantle the barrier and achieve hyperspace, what else might they be capable of?" A tense silence fell over the chamber. The implications were clear. Humanity had not only defied the Council's expectations, but had done so in a way that suggested immense technological progress. Finally, the most revered figure in the room rose to speak. Council Leader Orin, an elder of the Luminar species, whose translucent form seemed to pulse with an inner light, addressed the assembly. "We must remain calm," Orin said, their voice soothing yet authoritative. "Panic will not serve us. Instead, we must understand the scope of what has occurred and determine our response." A small reptilian technician stepped forward, their scales shimmering nervously. "The human vessel, designated Odyssey, appears to have breached the barrier 5 standard hours ago. It has since entered hyperspace and is currently on a trajectory toward the core systems. The core systems? Lorana exclaimed, her amphibious features tightening with alarm. Are they heading here? Possibly, the technician replied. We have detected no hostile activities so far. Their intentions are unclear. The Council's unease deepened. Humanity had not only escaped, but was coming directly toward the heart of the galaxy's political and military power. Carr, ever the hawk, pressed his advantage. We must act immediately. Send the Vanguard fleet to intercept them. We cannot allow this threat to reach the core systems. Lorana interjected, her tone measured. If they've developed hyperspace travel, they may possess other advanced technologies. A direct confrontation could escalate the situation unnecessarily. Thralic chimed in, their crystalline form glowing faintly. We underestimated them once. Let us not repeat that mistake. We must consider the possibility that they seek diplomacy. Diplomacy? Carr spat, his mandibles clicking in disdain. They've already demonstrated their disregard for our authority by breaking through the quarantine zone. What reason do we have to trust them? Orin raised a hand, calling for order. The chamber fell silent. We must not act rashly, the leader said. Humanity's escape is a challenge, yes, but it is also an opportunity. If they seek dialogue, we should be prepared to listen, and if they seek, Worf Carr countered. Orin's gaze hardened, the light within their form dimming slightly. Then we shall be prepared for that as well. Summon the Vanguard fleet, but instruct them to hold position at the edge of the core systems. In the meantime, we will attempt to communicate with the human vessel. As the Council debated their next steps, the human vessel Odyssey hurtled through hyperspace. On board, its crew of pioneers marveled at their achievement. Dr. Elena Carter, the mastermind behind the hyperspace engine, stood on the bridge, staring at the swirling lights outside the viewport. Her chestnut hair was tied back in a practical braid, and her piercing green eyes reflected the vibrant colors of hyperspace. We did it, she said softly, almost in disbelief. Beside her, Commander Nathan Briggs leaned back in his chair, a wry smile playing on his lips. Not bad for a bunch of primitive earthlings, huh? Elena chuckled, though her expression remained serious. We've broken through the barrier, Nathan, but we have no idea what's waiting for us on the other side. Whatever it is, Nathan replied, his tone resolute, we'll handle it. We didn't come this far to back down now. Elena nodded, her determination matching his. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. Now, they would show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. As the Odyssey sped toward its unknown destination, the Galactic Council prepared for its first contact with the species it had feared for millennia. The stakes were higher than ever, and the galaxy stood on the brink of a new era, one that could bring either unprecedented cooperation or catastrophic conflict. The Odyssey's bridge was a controlled chaos of flashing monitors and tense voices. Despite the successful escape from the quarantine zone, the crew's adrenaline remained high. Every member of the team understood the gravity of what they had just accomplished. They weren't merely explorers or inventors. They were rebels against the Galactic Council's imposed isolation. Dr. Elena Carter sat in the command chair, her eyes scanning the display of hyperspace coordinates and energy readouts. Her mind was still racing. The hyperspace jump had been a gamble, one that could have easily resulted in catastrophic failure. But it had worked, and now they were racing toward the core systems, toward answers. Commander Nathan Briggs paced the deck, his hands clasped behind his back. All systems holding steady. Hyperspace core is stable, reported Lieutenant Amir Khan, the ship's engineer, his voice laced with both pride and exhaustion. But we pushed it harder than we should have. If we're intercepted or forced into another jump, I'm not sure the core can handle it. Nathan nodded grimly. Let's hope the Council is more interested in talking than shooting. Elena spoke without looking up. They're not going to be happy about this. We violated their quarantine, disrupted their plans, and now we're barreling straight into their territory. She paused, her voice steady but resolute. Good. It's time they explain why they'd kept us caged for so long. Humanity's discovery. The journey to breaking the barrier hadn't been an accident. For centuries, scientists on Earth had puzzled over inexplicable failures of deep space probes. Missions that should have succeeded mysteriously faltered as they neared the edge of the solar system. Elena had been a key figure in uncovering the truth, a physicist and engineer with a knack for solving the unsolvable. She had spent decades studying anomalies in Earth's cosmic data. When her team finally identified the faint energy signature of the barrier, she knew they were dealing with something beyond human technology. Her breakthrough came when she theorized that the barrier was a type of quantum interference field. Using experimental quantum tunneling techniques, she and her team developed a way to destabilize it. The plan was ambitious, bordering on reckless, but it had worked. "What do you think they'll do when we arrive?" Nathan asked, breaking the silence. "They'll be scared," Elena replied. "We've just done the one thing they thought we couldn't. That's bound to unsettle them. But fear can make people talk, or act irrationally. We need to be ready for both." The Council's reaction. On the other side of the galaxy, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council remained in turmoil. The news of humanity's escape had already reached far beyond the chamber, spreading through the networks of allied civilizations. Rumors and speculation ran rampant. In private chambers adjacent to the main hall, Councilor Carr conferred with allies from the Zarin Collective. "This cannot go unanswered," Carr growled, his mandibles clicking angrily. "Allowing the humans to reach the core systems will be seen as weakness. We must intercept and destroy them before they can gain a foothold." "You speak as if they've declared war," Thralic countered, their crystalline form shimmering faintly. "The humans may simply want answers. They have always been unpredictable, violent. What if this is only the first step in a campaign of conquest?" Council Leader Orin entered the room, their translucent form glowing softly. "Enough, both of you. The Council has made its decision. We will attempt communication first. The Vanguard fleet will remain on standby as a precaution." Carr bristled but remained silent. He had long disagreed with Orin's measured approach, but even he couldn't openly defy the Council leader's authority. First contact. As the Odyssey neared its destination, a massive station loomed into view. The structure was awe-inspiring. A sprawling construct of gleaming metal and energy fields, surrounded by fleets of ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. "This must be it," Nathan muttered, his voice tinged with both awe and apprehension. Moments later, a deep voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified vessel. This is the Galactic Council Station. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately." Elena stepped forward. "This is Dr. Elena Carter of the human vessel Odyssey. We come in peace, seeking an explanation for the barrier placed around our solar system." There was a pause, and then the voice returned. "Your actions constitute a violation of intergalactic law. Prepare to dock at the designated port. Any deviation will be considered hostile." "Well," Nathan said dryly, "they sound thrilled to see us." "They're trying to assert control," Elena said. "Let them. We're not here to fight." The Odyssey followed the docking instructions, sliding into a massive hangar bay within the station. As the crew prepared to disembark, Elena turned to Nathan. "Stay sharp," she said. "This is only the beginning." The meeting. Elena and Nathan stepped onto the station's polished floor, flanked by towering alien guards. The sheer variety of life forms around them was overwhelming. Tall, crystalline beings, insectoid creatures with shimmering carapaces, amphibious beings with iridescent skin. Every eye or equivalent sensory organ was fixed on the humans. They were led into the Grand Chamber, where hundreds of representatives from the Council's member species were assembled. At the center of the room stood Orin, their luminous form radiating a calm authority. "Dr. Carter, Commander Briggs," Orin began, their voice echoing through the chamber, "your presence here is unprecedented. You have breached the quarantine zone and entered Council space without permission. Explain yourselves." Elena stepped forward, her voice steady despite the weight of countless eyes upon her. "For centuries, you've kept us isolated, caged within our own solar system. We discovered the barrier and broke through because we deserve answers. Why were we quarantined?" A murmur rippled through the chamber. Counselor Carr spoke next, his voice sharp and accusatory. "You were quarantined because your species is a threat. Your history is one of war and destruction. The Council acted to protect the galaxy from your recklessness." Nathan couldn't hold back. "So, you locked us up like animals and didn't bother to explain yourselves?" Real diplomatic. Lorana, the Aquilith representative, interjected. The decision was not made lightly. Humanity's tendency toward violence and rapid technological development posed a unique danger. Elena narrowed her eyes. "You feared what we might become, so you chose to suppress us. But fear isn't a justification. It's an excuse. Humanity has faced countless challenges, wars, plagues, environmental collapse, and every time we've overcome them. Don't mistake our resilience for recklessness." Oren raised a hand, silencing the chamber. "Your words are compelling, Dr. Carter, but trust is not easily earned. The Council must deliberate on how to proceed. Humanity's gamble." Back on the Odyssey, the crew awaited the Council's decision with bated breath. Tensions ran high, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. "Do you think they'll let us in?" Amir asked, his voice betraying his anxiety. "They don't have much of a choice," Elena replied. "They've seen what we can do. The question isn't if they'll let us in. It's whether they'll do it willingly or reluctantly." Nathan leaned against the bulkhead, his arms crossed. "And if they don't, then we'll make them," Elena said, her voice resolute. "Not with weapons, but with persistence. We didn't come this far to be sent back." The Odyssey crew braced for what would come next, knowing that their actions had already changed the course of human history, and perhaps the galaxy's as well. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council remained in heated deliberation long after the humans had been escorted back to their vessel. Humanity's unexpected arrival had thrown the Council into chaos, splitting the member civilizations into factions. Some advocated for diplomacy, while others demanded immediate military action. Counselor Carr paced furiously in his private quarters, his claws tapping on the polished floor. The Zarin representative could not fathom how the humans had managed to escape the quarantine zone, let alone achieve hyperspace travel. To him, humanity's very existence posed an existential threat to galactic stability. "This insolence cannot be allowed to stand," he hissed, addressing his assembled advisors. "They must be dealt with before their influence spreads." One of his subordinates, a slender insectoid figure, spoke hesitantly. "Counselor, the humans have shown remarkable ingenuity. If we underestimate them again—" "Enough!" Carr snapped. "Their ingenuity only makes them more dangerous. If we delay, they will exploit our hesitation." A counter-argument. In another part of the station, Lorana of the Aquilith Union met with her allies. Her chambers were humid, a comfort for her amphibious species, but stifling for others. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with Kara's aggressive posture. "We must tread carefully," Lorana said, her voice soft but firm. "The humans have already defied our expectations. Aggression will only provoke them further. Diplomacy is our only viable path forward." One of her advisors, a tall, willowy being with glowing eyes, nodded. "And yet many in the Council see them as a threat. How can we convince them otherwise?" "By showing them that humanity is more than its history of conflict," Lorana replied. "If we meet their actions with violence, we risk becoming the very thing we accuse them of being." Humanity's position. Aboard the Odyssey, Elena Carter and Nathan Briggs reviewed the events of their first encounter with the Council. The crew's morale was high, but the tension was palpable. "They're divided," Nathan said, leaning back in his chair. "That much is obvious." Elena nodded. "It works in our favor. If we can convince even a portion of the Council to see reason, we might have a chance to secure humanity's place in the galaxy." "But what if they don't see reason?" Amir asked, his voice tinged with worry. Elena's eyes hardened. Then we'll show them what humanity is capable of, through ingenuity, not force. But make no mistake, we didn't come this far to back down. The Council's decision. After hours of debate, the Council reconvened. The chamber was tense, filled with representatives eager to see how this unprecedented situation would unfold. Council leader Orin took the center stage, their luminous form radiating an air of calm authority. After much deliberation, the Council has reached a decision, Orin announced. We will permit a provisional dialogue with humanity, contingent on their willingness to adhere to our protocols. This dialogue will determine whether humanity is fit for integration into the galactic community. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Carr visibly bristled but remained silent. Orin turned to the human delegation. Dr. Carter, Commander Briggs, you and your crew will remain here as our guests while we initiate this dialogue. Know that this is an opportunity, not a guarantee. Elena stepped forward. We understand, Council Leader. Humanity only asks for the chance to prove itself. The test. Over the next several days, the humans participated in a series of discussions, tests, and demonstrations meant to evaluate their intentions and capabilities. They explained the history of Earth, its triumphs and failures, its wars and peacetimes, its capacity for destruction, but also its resilience and innovation. The Council observed humanity's achievements with a mix of awe and apprehension. Their cultural artifacts, scientific breakthroughs, and artistic expressions painted a picture of a species that, despite its flaws, possessed immense potential. One particular demonstration caught the Council's attention. Elena presented a holographic model of Earth's climate restoration projects, massive, coordinated efforts to reverse centuries of ecological damage. This is what defines us, Elena said, her voice steady. When faced with our own self-inflicted destruction, we found a way to survive and rebuild. That's the core of humanity, adaptability and determination. Carr's schemes. Not everyone was convinced. Carr, unwilling to accept the Council's decision, began orchestrating a plan to sabotage the humans' efforts. Using his influence within the Zarin collective, he covertly deployed a strike force to intercept the Odyssey. This will end before it begins, he muttered to himself, watching as his agents prepared for their mission. The Council is too weak to act, but I am not. A desperate stand. The Odyssey crew, unaware of Carr's machinations, continued their preparations. It wasn't until an urgent transmission arrived from a sympathetic Council member that they learned of the impending attack. Carr's forces are en route, the message warned. You must leave immediately or risk annihilation. Elena's face hardened as she turned to Nathan. We can't run. Leaving now would make us look guilty and undermine everything we've worked for. Nathan nodded. Then we stand our ground. The crew scrambled to fortify the Odyssey, knowing they were outmatched. Amir worked tirelessly to modify the hyperspace core, hoping to create a defensive energy field. The confrontation. When Carr's forces arrived, the hangar bay erupted into chaos. The Odyssey's defenses held for a time, but it quickly became clear that they couldn't withstand a prolonged assault. Amir's modifications finally came online, generating a pulse that disabled the attackers' weapon systems. It was a desperate gamble, but it worked. Before the conflict could escalate further, the Council security forces intervened, detaining Carr's agents and restoring order. The aftermath, the attack, while alarming, ultimately worked in humanity's favor. The Council was outraged by Carr's actions, viewing them as a breach of protocol and an embarrassment to the galactic community. Orin addressed the chamber, their tone firm. This incident has shown us two things: the potential for division within our ranks and the resilience of humanity. Let this be a lesson to us all. Elena and Nathan stood before the Council once more, their resolve unshaken. We didn't come here to fight, Elena said, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. All we want is a chance to be part of this galaxy, to contribute, to learn, and to grow. The decision is yours. A new beginning. After further deliberation, the Council voted to grant humanity provisional membership in the galactic community. It was a cautious step, filled with conditions and oversight, but it was a step forward. As the Odyssey prepared to return to Earth, Elena reflected on everything they had achieved. Humanity's journey was far from over, but they had taken the first monumental step toward a future among the stars. Nathan joined her on the observation deck, staring out at the swirling stars of hyperspace. "You think they'll really accept us?" Elena smiled faintly. "They'll have to. We're not going anywhere." The Odyssey surged forward, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams into a new era of possibilities.